All right. A push class 2013-2014. Mr. Dunphy. I actually have a special guest for what is actually an audio cast tonight. Want to introduce yourself?
Hello, everybody. This is Mrs. Dunphy speaking, and I will be playing the role of Benjamin Franklin.
All right. So let's put some effort into this. All right, please.
I'm ready.
All right. So I'll be the selected members of the House of Commons questioning Ben Franklin. The context here is Ben Franklin's been sent by the colonies to testify about the Stamp Act, the hated Stamp Act. All right, which we've at this point you've read about, but we'll look at more tomorrow. So we'll look at this reading tomorrow. This actually is a dialogue, really, and that's why it works well to have a couple people do it. So really want to focus in on the dialogue that's happening. And what I did here was I highlighted in yellow things that were important for the background of it. I highlighted things in green that were good, important for the context and the content. And then in red, I highlighted anything that I thought really put emphasis on the argument and some emotion and really just where it kind of got tense in the dialogue. You'll see how that kind of goes. When it comes red, you'll see that. In addition to that, there's vocabulary sort of speckled in between there, words that might trip us up if you don't know what it is, just been defined, and some other important details that you might need. So, without further ado, are not the colonies, from their circumstances, very able to pay the stamp duty?
In my opinion, there is not gold and silver enough in the colonies to pay the stamp duty for 1 year.
That's it. You're not going to put a little accent?
No.
All right. Sorry. Do you not know that the money arising from the stamps was all to be laid out in America?
I know it is appropriated by the Act to the American service, but it will be spent in the conquered colonies where the soldiers are, not in the colonies that pay it.
Do you think it right that America should be protected by this country and pay no part of the expense?
That is not the case. The colonies raised, clothed, and paid during the last war near 25,000 men and spent many millions.
Were you not reimbursed by Parliament?
We were only reimbursed what, in your opinion, we had advanced beyond our proportion, or beyond what might reasonably be expected from us, and it was a very small part of what we spent. Pennsylvania, in particular, dispersed about 500,000
Pounds.
pounds. I was going to say francs, sorry.
Pounds.
And the reimbursements in the whole did not exceed 60,000 pounds.
All right. You want to do any math there? All right. No.
No, that's fine.
Okay. Right.
Keep moving.
Sounds good. Do you not think the people of America would submit to pay the stamp duty if it was moderated?
No, never, unless compelled by force of arms.
What was the temper of America toward Great Britain before the year 1763?
The best in the world, they submitted willingly to the government of the crown and paid in their courts obedience to acts of parliament. Numerous as the people are in the several old provinces, they cost you nothing in forts, citadels, garrisons, or armies to keep them in subjection. They were governed by this country at the expense only of a little pen, ink, and paper. They were led by a thread. They had not only respect, but an affection for Great Britain for its laws, its customs, and manners, and even a fondness for its fashions that greatly increased the commerce. Natives of Britain were always treated with particular regard. To be an old England man was of itself a character of some respect, and gave a kind of rank among us.
And what is their temper now?
Oh, very much altered.
I got a little more feeling into that exclamation point.
Oh, very much altered. No, that's a question. Keep going.
All right. Did you ever hear the authority of Parliament to make laws for America questioned till lately?
The authority of Parliament was allowed to be valid in all laws except such as should lay internal taxes. It was never disputed in laying duties to regulate commerce.
In what light did the people of America use to consider the Parliament of Great Britain?
They considered the Parliament as the great bulwark and security of their liberties and privileges, and always spoke of it with the utmost respect and veneration. Arbitrary ministers, they thought, might possibly, at times, attempt to oppress them, but they relied on it that the Parliament, on application, would always give redress. They remembered, with gratitude, a strong instance of this when a bill was brought into Parliament with a clause to make royal instructions laws in the colonies which the House of Commons would not pass, and it was thrown out.
And have they not still the same respect for Parliament?
No, it is greatly lessened.
To what causes is that owing?
To a concurrence of causes, the restraints lately laid on their trade, by which the bringing of foreign gold and silver into the colonies was prevented, the prohibition of making paper money among themselves, and then demanding a new and heavy tax by stamps, taking it away,
Taking
taking away, sorry, at the same time trials by juries and refusing to receive and hear their humble petitions.
Do you not think they would submit to the Stamp Act if it was modified, the obnoxious parts taken out, and the duty reduced to some particulars of small moment?
No, they will never submit to it.
Was it an opinion in America before 1763 that the Parliament had no right to lay taxes and duties there?
I never heard an objection to the right of laying duties to regulate commerce, but a right to lay internal taxes was never supposed to be in Parliament, as we are not represented there.
On what do you found your opinion that the people in America made any such distinction?
I know that whenever the subject has occurred in conversation where I have been present, it has appeared to be the opinion of every one that we could not be taxed by a Parliament wherein we were not represented. But the payment of duties laid by an act of Parliament as regulations of commerce was never disputed.
But can you name any act of assembly or public act of any of your governments that made such distinction?
I do not know that there was any. I think there was never an occasion to make any such act till now that you have attempted to tax us. That has occasioned resolutions of assembly declaring the distinction, in which I think every assembly on the continent and every member at every assembly have been unanimous.
You say the colonies have always submitted to external taxes and object, to the right of Parliament only in laying internal taxes. Now, can you show that there is any kind of difference between the two taxes to the colony on which they might be laid?
I think the difference is very great. An external tax is a duty laid on commodities imported. That duty is added to the first cost and other charges on the commodity, and when it is offered for sale makes a part of the price. If the people do not like it at that price, they refuse it. They are not obliged to pay it. But an internal tax is forced from the people without their consent if not laid by their own representatives. The Stamp Act says we shall have no commerce, make no exchange of property with each other, neither purchase nor grant nor recover debts. We shall neither marry nor make our wills, unless we pay such and such sums. And thus it is intended to extort our money from us or ruin us by the consequence of refusing to pay it.
But suppose the external tax or duty to be laid on the necessaries of life imported into your colony. Will not that be the same thing in its effects as an internal tax?
I do not know a single article imported into the northern colonies, but what they can either do without it or make themselves.
Do you not think cloth from England absolutely necessary to them?
No, by no means absolutely necessary. With industry and good management, they may very well supply themselves with all they want.
Will it not take a long time to establish that manufacture among them, and must they not, in the meanwhile, suffer greatly?
I think not. They have made a surprising progress already, and I am of the opinion that before their old clothes are worn out, they will have new ones of their own making.
Can they possibly find wool enough in North America?
They have taken steps to increase the wool. They entered into general combinations to eat no more lamb, and very few lambs were killed last year. This course persisted and will soon make a
Prodigious?
prodigious, difference in the quantity of wool, and the establishment of great manufactories, sorry, I can't read this one. Like those in the clothing towns here, it is not necessary, as it is where the business is to be carried on for the purposes of trade. The people will all spin and work for themselves in their own houses.
Considering the resolutions of Parliament as to the right, do you think if the Stamp Act is repealed that the North Americans will be satisfied?
I believe they will.
Why do you think so?
I think the resolutions of right will give them very little concern if they are never attempted to be carried into practice. The colonies will probably consider themselves in the same situation in that respect with Ireland. They know you claim the same right with regard to Ireland, but you never exercise it. And they may believe you will never exercise it in the colonies any more than in Ireland, unless on some very extraordinary occasion.
But who are to be the judges of that extraordinary occasion is not the Parliament.
Though the Parliament may judge of the occasion, the people will think it can never exercise such till representatives from the colonies are admitted into Parliament, and that, whenever the occasion arises, representatives will be ordered.
Can anything less than a military force carry the Stamp Act into execution?
I do not see how a military force can be applied to that purpose.
Why may it not?
Suppose a military force sent into America. They will find nobody in arms. What are they then to do? They cannot force a man to take stamps who chooses to do without them. They will not find a rebellion. They may, indeed, make one.
Ooh,
It's getting crazy.
that's right. If the act is not repealed, what do you think will be the consequences?
A total loss of the respect and affection the people of America bear to this country, and of all the commerce that depends on that respect and affection.
How can the commerce be affected?
You will find that if the act is not repealed, they will take very little of your manufactures in a short time.
Is it in their power to do without them?
I think they may very well do without them.
Is it in their interest not to take them?
The goods they take from Britain are either
Necessary.
mere conveniences or superfluities. Superfluities?
Right? There you go. You did it.
The first as cloth, etc., with a little industry. Oh
Industry.
God, I can't.
You're getting tired, huh?
Yeah, it's very late, guys.
It's all right. Go ahead.
They can make at home. The second they can do without, till they are able to provide them among themselves. And the last, which are much the greatest part, they will strike off immediately. They are mere articles of fashion, purchased and consumed because the fashion in a respected country, but will now be detested and rejected. The people have already struck off, by general agreement, the use of all goods fashionable in mourning, and many £1,000s worth are sent back as unsellable.
Right. Can't sell. Then no regulation with a tax would be submitted to?
You made me read.
Yeah, you got the
these
worst
long
word.
parts.
You get the worst
Thanks
word.
a lot. Their opinion is that when aids to the crown are wanted, they are to be asked of the several assemblies according to the old established usage, who will, as they always have done, grant them freely, and that their money ought not to be given away without their consent by persons at a distance, unacquainted with their circumstances and abilities. The granting aids to the crown is the only means they have of recommending themselves to their sovereign, and they think it is extremely hard and unjust that a body of men in which they have no representatives should make a merit to itself of giving and granting what is not its own but theirs, and deprive them of a right they esteem of the utmost value and importance, as it is the security of all their other rights.
Excellent. Supposing the Stamp Act continued and enforced, do you imagine that ill humor will induce the Americans to give as much for worse manufactures of their own and use them preferable to better of ours?
Yes, I think so. People will pay as freely to gratify one passion as another, their resentment as their pride.
If the Stamp Act should be repealed, would not the Americans think they could oblige the Parliament to repeal every external tax law now in force?
It is hard to answer questions of what people at such a distance will think.
Again, fighting words. Ben Franklin's tough, man. It's tough. But what do you imagine they will think were the motives of repealing the act?
I suppose they will think that it was repealed from a conviction of its
Inexpediency.
and they will rely upon it that while the same inexpediency subsists, you will never attempt to make such another.
Yeah, see. They're afraid of what they looks like now. What do you mean by its inexpediency?
I mean its inexpediency on several accounts, the poverty and inability of those who were to pay the tax, the general discontent it has occasioned, and the impracticability of enforcing it.
Good. But if the legislature should think fit to ascertain its right to lay taxes by any act laying a small tax, contrary to their opinion, would they submit to pay the tax?
The proceedings of the people in America have been considered too much together. The proceedings of the assemblies have been very different from those of the mobs, and should be distinguished as having no connection with each other. The assemblies have only peaceably resolved what they take to be their rights. They have taken no measures for opposition by force. They have not built a fort, raised a man, or provided a grain of ammunition in order to such opposition. The ringleaders of riots, they think, ought to be punished. They would punish them themselves if they could exist. Every sober, sensible man would wish to see rioters punished, as otherwise peaceable people have no security of person or estate. But as to an eternal tax, how small soever, laid by the legislature here on the people there, while they have no representatives in this legislature, I think it will never be submitted to. They will oppose it to the last. They do not consider it as at all necessary for you to raise money on them by your taxes, because they are, and always have been, ready to raise money taxes among themselves, and to grant large sums equal to their abilities upon requisition from the crown. Pat, this thing is like 10 more pages.